Hi, my name is Joseph Alai. Welcome to my channel. And today I want to talk about 3 success stories from individuals I coached with whom I have created custom Imaginal Acts for, that when they imagined them, they received the results that they were looking for. And I want to take you through the process of constructing an Imaginal Act the exact way that I do in the allotted time of a reasonable time, so that by the end of this video, not only will you have the inspiration of this individual that I coached, their success stories, but you will walk away with a more solid foundation of what an Imaginal Act is, how to construct one, and what to expect. And just a hint, a lot of it has to do with the specifics that you place in the scene that nets the results. So before we begin, do me a favor. It really helps when you hit the like button. It does something to the YouTube algorithm so that those who wouldn't normally be able to see this will be able to see this. Also, hit the subscribe button. My channel is known, and what I have done is systematically and methodically deconstruct manifesting through scientific experiments and observations to construct methods that ultimately work in a predictable fashion. So if you like broken down systematic success stories, much like this video, and techniques, broken down analysis of Neville Goddard's work, go ahead, hit that subscribe button and stay notified. Also, I have an email list that's very active where I give away content continuously. You'll be in the know for all my stuff, sharing everything with you, and notify with the bell icon. So jumping into this concept and idea of a powerful Imaginal Act. So I had I suppose you could say I have a coaching client who I've been working with for a while. We had initially spoken with each other because she was attempting to manifest a few separate things. Now, ultimately, the core desire was to manifest her specific person. And she had attempted through various means. She had a number of coaches, had tried many different things, been in certain groups and courses, module courses, and she could not get the results that she was looking for. She had found some success. She was a student of Neville Goddard, much like myself, but the problem with her was that she could not nail down the exact things that she needed to do, which is this is common that I've heard. And even for myself, for many years, before I began to systematically test the art of manifestation, the craft of manifestation, everything I did was all based off of what I had been told, what this book said, what this lecturer said to do. And it wasn't until I began to write them down, like for instance, I just received my shipping from New Jersey, and that contained a lot of my journals, which I'm really excited for. And I flipped open one of my journals, and it was in December of 2013. That was, so far, the journal that I saw. That was one of my older keeping track of my manifestations. So that's been what now? 11 years, just about, going on 12 years, where I've been tracking my manifestations. But before that, it was all just, I hear this and do this thing and get this result or don't get this result. So this is common. This is common in the manifestation community, and especially now in this age of social media and YouTube, which at the time, these things did not talk about manifesting, but there's a lot of information out there. So suffice it to say, this individual took many different approaches, but she fervently attempted to manifest her specific person. And in her mind, the problems that she faced was a lack of clarity of direction. She didn't know exactly what she should be doing. She had general concepts and ideas as far as how manifesting worked. She had some ideas with Imaginal Acts. She had this person says this person says that, and kind of mixed it all together. And she got some results, but in the end, she did not manifest her specific person from these individuals. She did not lose the weight, and she did not have the success that she wanted in her career. And so that is when I met her. And after that, and effectively, we got into our discussions, and it came to me very clearly that she needed to be able to clarify and specify her imaginal acts, her imaginal scenes. So for those of you who don't know, an imaginal scene is the core of manifesting. Now, there are many ways to implement an imaginal scene, meaning different techniques that you can use to imagine this scene. But ultimately, the imaginal scene must embody your desire from the point of view of a person who's already received it. And that's a critical distinction. And not only that, you must be experiencing it from the scene as opposed to thinking of it from a distance. And there are some nuances that only through experience and testing and observation would one be able to decipher what works and what doesn't. And so in this case, initially, the first thing I want to talk about is the weight. So she had, I wouldn't have said in my own opinion that she was something like heavy per se, but that's not for me to judge. But nevertheless, in her mind, she had this objective, this goal in her mind, that she wanted to look a certain way. She wanted her body type to be a certain way. And even myself, I've had situations where I needed to manifest changes in my body. I've had many successes. And over the years, I've kept track and have recorded incidents of many people who have manifested successfully and observed how they did it with regards to their changing their body types. And so in this case, her imaginal act was to have, first, it was specifically that she was at the gym and that she was in her apparel standing on the scale, and she had read 111 pounds on the scale. And she had repeated that over and over, but to no avail. She did not get those results that she was looking for. And she had told me and confided in me, she hated the gym. She absolutely loathed the gym. And so then she imagined something different. She imagined that she was having a conversation with a friend where she was eating something that was extremely fatty. And she was telling her friend that she needs to do nothing at all and she loses weight. And again, nothing happened. It did not manifest. And so there are some core attributes here that are very important as to what I speculated initially through my observations of her desire and her imaginal act in comparison to the loads of experiments that we've done in the past, the things that I've witnessed and observed. And so one of the things that stood out to me was that she was adding various conditions to the desire, which ultimately meant that she was saying how it was going to come in multiple ways. There's nothing inherently wrong with this, but it does add limitations. So in other words, now she had to, if the imaginal act were to be fulfilled, which the subconscious and the imaginal act, the function of it, the imagination and the subconscious are reality creation mechanisms. They are replication mechanisms. You input something and it's replicated in the exact nature that was imposed upon the subconscious mind, that was held within the imagination. And the problem with this is that she was nowhere near someone who liked to go to the gym. She also looked at a specific number, which in and of itself, again, is not apparently wrong. That's something that's absolutely possible. But in her mind, she didn't actually care about that number. In fact, she didn't even know if that was a number that she would like. She would have wanted to go where she looked the best. So the imaginal act that I created for her so I took my time, I took what she wanted, and I went through the same process as I do when I construct imaginal acts for my clients, for the custom imaginal acts. And I derived or extracted the core information and generated a scene. And this is the process that I use. So essentially what I came up with was I took her core desires, which is something you have to kind of read through the lines of what you're looking for. Did she really care about 111? No. Did she want to go to the gym? No. So there were certain things that didn't matter. When you add these conditions, you actually compel them and force them to be created in reality, which means if you are nowhere near that state of consciousness, there's going to have to be changes that occur. You are going to have to be someone now, or she would have had to become someone who enjoys the gym enough to go, and she would have had to manifest this 111. So ultimately what I constructed was a conversation. She was standing in front of her friend. She was in no way looking at herself. There was no number of weight or anything like this, but her friend had told her that you look amazing. Your body looks amazing. And my client then in this Imaginal Act repeated this back to her and said, I know, I love my body. I look perfect, or I am the perfect image of myself. I'm my perfect desired image, something to this effect. And this was nearly instantaneous. I sent her the custom Imaginal Act. She played it. By the next day, she automatically said her diet changed. Her cravings for sweets almost depleted instantaneously. And from there on, it only took one day of not eating specific things like bread and sugar, and her appetite completely changed. She went through, this was the bridge of incidents. And that was all it took for her to build some internal strength that just automatically happened as a bridge of incidents. And ultimately, she went to a weight where what happened? Her friend told her, this is after the fact, during a next session, she explained the fulfillment, and I could tell too, she looked completely different. And you could tell she was glowing too. And she said that a friend had complimented her and told her that she looked amazing, that her body looked great. And then she said that, yes, she has the perfect body. And it had nothing to do with that number weight. So eliminating extraneous details was the key here, and then specifying really what she wanted and leaving the rest to her God self to fill in the blanks, which is far more intelligent than we are. And I have many videos that talk about this. So, and aside from that, the next one that I'll briefly discuss is business. She did have experience as freelancing. She was a writer, but she worked at a company in the marketing department, and she wanted to do something different. And so she had imagined being a freelancer that worked with Facebook advertising. And she had come up with this out of thin air. She had no experience whatsoever writing ad copy for Facebook. She was skilled though, mind you, but just didn't have the experience with operating the mechanics behind this system. And what ended up happening was she continuously would get, she would go a little, like one step forward, but then keep getting pushed back. In other words, what I'm saying is she kept her job at the marketing department, and she kept trying to start this business and did all this research and all of this stuff, but ultimately she would either find a client, but then they would leave, they would abandon her, or things would just be completely unstable. Things would be completely stale is what I meant to say. So again, I wanted to kind of dig a little bit more, and this is the way, again, that I delve into my custom Imaginal Acts. The ones that I create for myself specifically, that I take essentially what I do is I boil down the common denominators between the thousands of my own manifestations and then the tens of thousands of my own, and probably more than that, like combined of others, individuals who have submitted them to me. And I take the common denominators, essentially compare them up against each other and say, okay, this is always true throughout each of these. These ones come fast, these ones come slow, these ones have super effectiveness, these ones seem to have crazy bridges, this one seemed to replicate in a weird way, this one came short, this one never happened at all yet. And I take those and I use those ideas and concepts and put those into the Imaginal Act. And so in this case, I had to derive what she wanted. She wanted to feel accomplished, like her work was doing something. She didn't mind working per se for someone else as long as she felt satisfied. She did want enough, she wanted enough freedom so that she could travel, that she could work remotely. And I think really the key was she wanted freedom. She wanted freedom, she wanted joy, she wanted fulfillment. And so I explained to her the way that I constructed my imaginal scene for me manifesting my business, which in effect, I described that. And then again, I went into my workshop of my mind, and I constructed a scene that was similar to the one that I had created, but it was the imaginal scene that I had written and then narrated was a conversation it was the experience from her perspective of the conversation between her and I, with her telling me how grateful she is that she now has she's doing exactly what she likes to do. She has the freedom to do it. She has the finances to do it, and she feels really complete. There's some phrase that meant that she felt really satisfied with what she does. And she had listened to the scene that I provided her, and it was rapid, super rapid again. So essentially what happened was she ended up getting on one of these websites where you can do, it's like Upwork or something to this effect, had posted an account on there long before we had even done this Imaginal Act. But essentially what happened was someone had reached out to her randomly after doing the Imaginal Act and asked her to perform writing tasks for their business, and specifically what that client who became her client had actually done was done research on her, liked that she was actually in corporate America, that she had an official background in copywriting in general and marketing, loved that she was self-driven and self-motivated, and ultimately ended up giving her held her and paid her monthly, that she would just have to give weekly submissions to this person who would give her information, and then she would crank this stuff out. She felt very satisfied. It provided her a large supplementary income, but the second part of this is even better. It was the same week that she went into work, and her job said that, or the marketing position that she had offered, that she had 3 days off now where she didn't have to go to the office, and otherwise she could work from home, which was amazing because ultimately it allowed her to do exactly what she wanted to do. And she's ultimately now working on traveling to other places, so she would like to become full remote, but nevertheless, it gave her the exact thing that she wanted to, and it used all of her core desires, or used all of her core skills and traits, so she feels very fulfilled. Lastly, and most importantly, I would like to talk about the Imaginal Act. The Imaginal Act regarding the specific person, the relationship with this individual. So this person, with all of these things, she had in mind one ultimate objective, and that was to manifest her specific person. So while her and I were engaged in multiple sessions and we talked about her beliefs, we talked about Imaginal Acts, we helped to uncover the patterns that existed in her life. We essentially removed a lot of the fallacies that she had related to manifesting that were taught to her, or just she insinuated was true based upon her past, which ultimately had gotten in the way and blocked her hypothetically from being able to fully identify as the person she wanted to be, and fully engage with the Imaginal Act, fully use her imaginal faculties with fervor to create the reality that she wanted. So that was one of the main things that we worked on during our time together so far. And also another thing was related to her relationship patterns in general. So we reflected back upon her. We looked at all the relationships where she had similar situations, such as abandonment issues, things where people would change their mind, which was very similar to something that I went through, and insecurities, things like this. And we systematically went through, identified the core beliefs that were ultimately causing her to repeat the same experiences over and over and over again, sabotaging her manifestations, preventing her from fully getting committed in a relationship or having someone commit to her. And then once we did that, she told me what she had been imagining consistently and seen nothing when it relates to this. So she was imagining marriage with her specific person, but not what she was imagining was an anniversary, which is perfect. That's a scene I talk about all the time. But in her mind, in her Imaginal Act, she was in Paris. She was on a bridge. She was overlooking the cityscape. She was with her specific person who was wearing a very specific outfit, who said a very specific thing to her, and she said a very specific thing back related to how they're so grateful they've been together for 3 years. And it was at nighttime. There was essentially, she was smelling the strong scent of of his cologne, and then I think she had details related to the place that she was eating at, and in the discussion, what they were speaking about, how they just enjoyed their meal and things like this. Ultimately, I just stopped right there, and I understood immediately some of the problems that I was confronted with, which were, in essence, the specificity was through the roof. The problem with specificity, where it's not required, is you narrow down the manifestation to a point where it's unnecessary. Think now, if you imagined finding money on the ground. How many pieces of money are on the ground? Probably countless. Could be anything. Could be a penny, or American. Could be a quarter. Could be a dime. Could be $1. Could be $10, $100, $50, whatever. But now, imagine, so that there's many ways that could come to you, right? So now imagine that you said, I found a 1974 Colombian peso on the ground. What would have to happen? What if there are none of them in the ground? Or let's go even crazier, right? Imagine that this person's now imagining that they have found a so when I had my package sent to me recently from New Jersey to England, I have my Alexander the Great struck coin, struck with a hammer during his era, literally, what's that, like 2,200 years ago, or 20 something, 2,000 years ago. But so imagine that, right? Found a, I don't know, 2,000-year-old coin on the ground that's from mint condition of Alexander the Great. So essentially what I've done here is given a very clear example how something can go very broad, thereby giving you countless odds or possibilities of that thing coming to you, versus narrowing it down slowly until it becomes the only thing in the world. Now, specific person is specific enough, which means the odds of you manifesting a specific person are 1 in 7 billion. Not as it relates to the possibility, it is still absolutely possible. But the point I'm trying to make is you now have to have God, infinite intelligence, the universe, provide you a meticulously genius bridge, controlling as many people as possible and moving people through very specific bridges to compel them and change them from the person they are now, from the point of view of a person who's not married and not interested in her, to the point of view of a person who is interested and who is married to her. So the bridge that has to unfold from one perspective to that end perspective, the more specific you get, the more that has to happen. Take the example again back to some Alexander the Great coin. What would have to happen for that to unfold? I mean, you can think of it in your own mind, right? So manifestations are, in case you're unaware, through observation and experience, one of the amazing things I have discovered about manifestations that can be confusing to many is that things always appear natural, like they would have happened anyway. That's actually a key condition of manifestation that you'll find over and over again, which essentially boils down to, when you observe, everything comes in a natural way. When a person decides randomly that they're going to take some action that you've manifested, they are acting in accordance to a thought that they have just popped into their head that they thought is their own. They might not even relate it to the end, but ultimately they will be taking action that will compel them to go there. So if a person hates person A and you manifest them to love person A, they're going to have to go through an interestingly meticulous, advanced, and a lot of times long bridge to get there. So, but in this case, now take a specific person, which in and of itself can be more advanced and slower than a general person for the reasons I've just clearly outlined, but and observed, and I'm sure you have as well. But then add the specificity of the location that they don't live near at all, the exact outfit that that person has, which they don't own currently, by the way, I'm assuming by the way she described it, because it was a suit from the place that they were at, that they were visiting, that they bought there. I'm assuming. And then all the other meticulous details that were outlined in this, now those also have to manifest, which means all of those things must line up in a perfect fashion. What would have to happen in order for that to unfold and fulfill in this reality? So ultimately, what I did was something super simple. What was her objective? Her objective was to get married to this person, to have a secure marriage, happy marriage to this person. So in this case, what I did was I sat there, I outlined, I constructed through her desires, extracted her core desires, and derived a scene, generated a scene. And that scene was very simple. It was her talking to me and telling me that she's so grateful in her marriage with his name. And then I congratulated her on her, that she was so happy in the relationship that she was married to, et cetera, et cetera. It was very brief, very short, very concise. It took out all the meticulous detail that was completely unimportant and unnecessary. And it wasn't a matter of 3 days that she got her first contact with that individual in 9 months. I remember 9 months specifically because it's the time of a baby. But within 3 days, she got contact with that person that she hadn't had in 9 months. And that person not only reached out to her, but that person showed attraction and had asked her to hang out, which ultimately they did hang out. And from there, the bridge is slowly unfolding and unraveling. But suffice it to say, they are clearly on what I would speculate is the bridge of incidents. And because they are together, they are currently together in the stage of being together. And so what does this all equate to? This is a long way to say, Imaginal Acts people put so much effort and specificity because of some of the instructions that were given by people like Neville Goddard, by a lot of common teachers out there. And there's nothing inherently wrong with adding specifics, but be specific where specifics need to be and leave out the rest for general. The reason for this, as I described earlier with the penny experiment, is that the more specific and unnecessary a manifestation is, the more complex and limited opportunities the universe has to give this to you. So it can be slower and more windy. This is something that we have observed through the systematic observation of manifestations that I've received from my coaching clients and people who have gotten my Imaginal Acts, but then also myself through the last however many years. And tens of thousands of manifestations. So a rule of thumb to take away from this is be specific as necessary, but as general as possible. Leave out extraneous details, right? When I sit down to construct an imaginal scene for my client, right? Sometimes they'll get 3 or 5, depending on the nature of like this individual had 3 imaginal scenes. I was going to cite more during this video, but I knew there wasn't going to be enough time. But nevertheless, what I do is I essentially derive, and this is the process you're going to want to take in summary of all of this. You want to derive the core desires from what you want. What is important to you? What is not important to you, right? Strip out, even look and objectively observe the scenes that you've been imagining. Strip out the nonsense, right? When I'm talking with one of my coaching clients, say someone who I'm just teaching specifically how to do a scene, oftentimes they'll tell me about all the random stuff they have pushed into their Imaginal Act. It's like, why? Remove it and specifically include what's necessary and leave out the rest. Make it short and concise and repeatable. Think from the scene, from the experience, and repeat it over and over until it saturates your body with a realness, a reality. That is all that it takes. And if you do that, you will, just like all the people that have submitted their success stories, and you probably as well have witnessed manifestations coming seamlessly. So anyway, I will stop there. This is long enough. I've been trying to make my video shorter. If you like this, please do. It helps so much. Hit the like button. Hit the subscribe button if you like these systematic breakdowns of the observations of manifestation. and the implementation of them to manifest your reality in a predictable way, whatever it is. And stay tuned for more. Thank you so much.